We're back. Goodness. Hi, folks. I got that right that time. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Apologies for some strange glitches today, but I am here. Welcome to another live stream artist chat on Instagram with the LivingRoom Community Art Studio. My name is Mary. Hello. Welcome. Thanks to everyone who is listening or watching out there. Thanks to everyone who listens once it's been archived after the stream has ended. We know that not everyone can join us in the middle of the day. So, do what's right for you. Listen or watch when it feels right to you. We don't mind. But today we are chatting with an artist and maker who I've only recently had the opportunity to connect with, and I'm so glad that I have. Musician, but so much more than that. Musician, filmmaker, animator. You know what? We're going to learn all about everything as much as we can in the time we have. Everything they are, everything they do, everything they want to do today, and why they do it and why it matters. So I'm going to invite Solyss on to have a little live stream chat. There we go. And let's get going with this.
Hello. How are you?
Oh, it's weird. It's still a weird day. It's just a weird day.
No, I get that. It's been a weird year or two.
It's almost 2 years now during this weirdness. And I mean, that's one of the weird things about being in this and being like trying to move through this actively is that it begins to feel normal. The weirdness begins to feel normal, doesn't it?
It does, and it's weird because sometimes you'll think about it and be like, wait a second, we're kind of in a worldwide crisis right now. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, thank you for joining me during a worldwide crisis. I know that you've got lots going on in life, but also in work. For folks who might not be familiar with who you are and what you do, could you take a little bit just to introduce yourself in your own words to them?
Sure. So I'm Solyss. I'm a musician, artist, kind of multimedia, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I make music, I make art, I make films, and that's kind of a separate thing. But I mean, it's also, I like to integrate everything kind of into my artist work as Solyss. So whether that's animations or album artwork or, storylines that come through with different songs and things. Yeah, I just kind of creating has kind of been my life, and it's something that I just really love doing, and I love sharing it with everyone.
I love that so much. And that's, I mean, the living room way. You've almost described what we would hope everyone out there could experience in some small way in their own life. Okay, so before we get carried away, let's go back to the beginning for you. When were you first aware of being an artist? When did creativity first creep into your life?
I think I started being creative really early on. I mean, especially in music. My mom's a piano teacher, so I started playing piano from like the age of like 4.
Yeah.
I've been playing violin since I was about 8. So that's been a really big part of my life for a very, very long time. But also visual arts, I've always really enjoyed creating visual arts, whether that's painting, drawing, digital art now is something that I've been kind of learning more of and integrating a lot into like my music stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then what else? Yeah, and then filmmaking and all that kind of stuff is what I studied in university. So I don't know, it all kind of came together in this kind of big creation of and celebration of art in Solyss. And yeah, I started creating as Solyss probably only, I want to say, a year and a half ago when I really like started that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I had been working on coming out with an album probably over, I kept telling everyone, yeah, I have all this music. Like, I think I'm gonna make like an album from it, just like make some for fun, like, why not?
Just an album. Spare.
Just
Yeah.
because I started playing around in GarageBand. Um, it was actually a way of procrastinating some of my work that I had to do when I was in university. So, I was playing around with that and I was like, you know what? Some of this stuff I it's pretty good, I guess. Maybe I'll do something with it. And then I kept creating more and more little like songs and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? It'd be cool to make a compilation of this and like an album. So I thought up this whole kind of thing, and maybe 2.5 years after that ended up in the album that I released in 2020 September. So yeah,
It's great.
it's been a journey.
It's an amazing album, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
And you can purchase it in many different places. Uh,
Yes.
support, support artists, period. But one of the things I loved about it, right from the very start, uh, is there is a story that flows through every song. There's a story that flows through the entire album. And even with the singles that you've released since then, there is this strong narrative kind of storytelling. Like the characters in these songs come across so, so clearly. Where does that come from for you? I mean, is it accidental? It sounded like a small part. You kind of stumbled into it, but it must come from somewhere.
I mean, with the album, there was very much like a through storyline for that. So it's, I don't know, it's very weird how it all happened because I, because the album was kind of like, this is a compilation of stuff I did, and I want it to all be a cohesive story. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of, some of it I had made the songs already, and some of them were kind of after I had thought of that thing. So I kind of integrated it into that. Um, but my whole concept was like virtual reality slash, it was called virtually reality,
Yeah.
which is kind of very much rooted in escapism, which I think a lot of my music is kind of
Mm.
for me, because I find that art and music is such an escape for me, um, from, the craziness of life, especially what we're living in right now. I mean, it's nice to have that kind of creative outlet to kind of get away from that once in a while. But yeah, so the whole first album was very much art as escapism. So I kind of created a storyline where this girl is kind of going through stuff in life, and she decides to kind of jump into this virtual world where she can escape that and kind of meets these different characters and things like that.
Yeah.
And kind of goes on this little journey. And by the end of it, she kind of realizes, like you can't always escape all the time. Like, of course, like everyone does,
Yeah.
but it was kind of, it was a very personal journey for me too, because, the character is essentially me,
I would,
channeled through me.
yeah.
So I was going through a couple of things, like a breakup at one point, and that kind of found itself into that and some of the work. Game Boy, that was kind of inspired by an ex, which we're on good terms. There's no bad feelings about it.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so that kind of inspired that. And a couple of the tracks, I think there were two of them, I collabed with another friend of mine who we jam a lot together, and he plays guitar. He's amazing at what he does. And so he was kind of one of the characters that integrated into there, that, the other character kind of like has fun with and like, plays along with and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how that all came together. But all
It's
the I can't explain it as well as I can write it up.
you have
But
made fantastic write-ups. Like that's another thing I'm like that I love. There's the music, but then you also share the narrative. So there's almost like this little guide that you're holding people's hand as they're taking this journey on that album with you. And I love that. That's for me as an oldie, a throwback to what albums used to be, because now in a culture that's so single heavy, you don't often get like an overarching story. For
yeah.
a lot of work. It's a lot of, it's a lot to put out there. It's
For sure.
uh,
Yeah, I really do enjoy when artists put out works that are kind of like rooted in a universe
mm,
or some sort of concept. Like I know there's still artists that do it. I find, like even, Lady Gaga with like her most recent thing is all rooted in this world called like Chromatica, you know what I mean? And it's very interesting to me how artists do that kind of thing. And I really like, you know, partaking in that because I just think it's so interesting. I love storytelling, and all my music is essentially storytelling. So
that's one of the things we love to talk about at Living Room with community is just that's what art is. Art is communication. Art is storytelling. So you have
yeah.
control in how you tell that story and how you share it with people. Um, and I love that you've managed to tie in all these other creative skill sets to this, that it's not just music. I also, let's just for a moment look at the music side of things, because did you also produce, and outside of that collaboration, did you play most of the instruments? And
Yeah, I mean, with all my music, it's kind of I do every like aspect of it. Like,
yeah,
I'm very much someone who likes to have control of everything. So, I was also learning a lot in the process too about like producing music and mixing and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I'll still listen back to some of the tracks and I'm like, oh, like I could definitely do that a lot better now that I've like, developed a bit more of a skill set and that kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's very much been a learning process for me, but I very much like to have a hand in everything that I do for my music stuff because it makes me feel creatively fulfilled.
yeah.
Um, and I just like learning new things and doing things. So yeah, I like having that. And I like creating art alongside that too. Um, like I like doing little animations and stuff like that for single releases or album releases or whatever. And I just kind of started experimenting with that, honestly. Um, digital art and stuff and animation. I had done some like small animation things before, but I've never really gotten to it as much I have now with all the music stuff.
Yeah.
So like pixel art, pixel animations, um, hand drawn animation as well. It's just
Woodburned animation,
yeah.
working with.
Yeah, that was actually a very, very fun collaboration. Really weird how it happened. But we're actually really, really good friends now, and it kind of came out of that, honestly, working together. She had heard my music. We worked together,
Yeah.
and I guess we had been talking, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like I make music, you know." Um, Hi Farah. And I'm like, "Yeah, like I make music and like art and stuff, and like you can check it out if you want, whatever." And she did, and she's like, "Wow, this is so cool! Like we should work on something together, like." And I was like, yeah, like if there's a project that comes up that like, I feel that like we could do something with, like definitely I'll keep you in mind. And so for my single 1 year 7 days, I was like, you know what? I think like this would be a good one to collaborate on. And she was like, oh, I wanted to try wood burning animation for a really long time. Like why don't we try that out? So we ended up doing a mixed media kind of animation, like 1 minute little music video kind of thing to that song, and it was such a fun time. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. I think it looked amazing. Her she's so skilled in what she does.
I agree.
And it's cool because the wood burning she did, she gifted to me at the end of it,
Oh,
the piece. So I have it in my bedroom sitting there in like a in a frame because it's beautifully done. I mean, I love it. So yeah.
folks, if you're wondering if you're new to Solyss and this music, like the wonderful music, um, you can check it out on Instagram and SoundCloud and all the places, Spotify, Apple Music, all the places. But you share a lot of the digital, like at least little teasers on your Instagram page too, so you can get a taste of things there, folks. I love that, that you recognize that you have this controlling impulse, but I don't know if it's controlling as much as I might gently challenge that. And I, but I wonder if it has to do with curiosity and just
hmm
wanting to be a part of all the creative elements. Because what I'm seeing is that it's actually enabling collaborations. It gives you the agency to have kind of a link to other creators out there, even if it's not something you are, you know, trying to do explicitly, right? You have this little
Hmm.
created that you can create with other people. So I don't know if it's like mine. I think it's just, it seems like this beautiful gift that allows you to connect with other creators and make really cool things with people. If you were a control freak, I don't know if that would some
I mean, I don't know. You could ask Farah how much I was a control freak in that, but no, we did work together really well. We're both very much like planners, so we had a whole like Google Doc set up and like a schedule on like what was gonna get done when, um, and
I
like who was responsible for which part of the music video because we all had different parts. She did all the wood burning stuff, and she did a couple other of the stop motion parts and stuff like that.
yeah.
So we had it all kind of like set out in this Google Doc that we would like check in every day, and we would have like phone calls and be like, okay, where are you at with this? How's that going? Do you think we'll still be on schedule? Which we also did this in a very, very short amount of time. I think we did it in about 2 weeks, which for animation is
Wow.
absolutely insane.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, again, that comes with producing your own work, except you do it really, really well. Like in my world, it's
Thank
like
you.
in scribbled lists and books that I lose all the time. Like that actually sounds quite professional, more so than you might, right? And far
Yeah.
we have fun despite being type A's.
Yeah, it's actually very, very funny. We have a lot of stuff in common. We're literally also born a day apart, so it's just a very interesting, very interesting combo when the two of us get together and make stuff. And
Well, that kind of leads me to something else I was curious about, just about the nature of collaboration, and not maybe not so much collaboration as allyship. Like, how important are these people in your life? Um, the role that other creators or makers or artists and strange, intense couple of years. And essentially, all of this you've been releasing into, like, has happened during this time. Like, it must have been so incredibly stressful to continue pursuing that. Like, how important were these creators, these collaborators for you during this time?
yeah, it's just been it's nice to collaborate with like-minded people
Mm,
on art. I mean, also with my friend who featured the guitar in some of the tracks in virtual reality, like we're very, very good friends, and we jam out all the time whenever we get together.
yeah,
So it's really great because I find working with other artists, there's that inspiration, and you kind of feed off of each other's energy.
yeah,
And sometimes you end up creating these things that you never would have created or thought of, I guess, by yourself. Like
yeah,
like someone else will come up with an idea like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, but that's like great, like let's integrate that for sure you know so as much as I like to do things myself, it is very nice to have that extra voice and input once in a while. And even when I am making my stuff just by myself and whatever,
yeah.
sometimes I'll like send it to a friend and be like, hey, do you mind listening to this and like telling me what you think? Because I'm feeling a little stuck right now. Because I mean, I get very critical with my work. So it's nice to have an outside voice um,
Mm,
to let me know, like, does this sound like, what's the mix sound like? Can you hear, the vocals well enough in this? Or, is one instrument drowning out another? Or, like, what do you think about the lyrics? Like, so I do like having that sometimes because you can get very, very in your head, I find, about things. And I do that all the time. I do that in my art. I do that in my life. Like I'm just I'm constantly in my head about anything and everything. So it's really helpful to have other artists and even friends that are supportive in the creative process to just feed off of and like have that additional feedback and input from.
yeah. And just to offer perspective sometimes, because I know, especially if you love something that you're doing, if it really matters to you, I
Hmm.
myself that can become so consumed or close to it that I do lose perspective. So
Yeah.
being able to step back or have someone to remind you to step back from it
Yeah.
really helpful. Um,
Well, it's funny because there's some songs that I'm like, I really don't like this song, or like, I don't like what I did in this. And like,
hmm,
it'll be after the fact, or even when I'm still in the process of releasing it. And then I'll have someone be like, no, that's my favorite one. Or like, no, I really like it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't hear that at all. And I'm like, really?
yeah,
Because it's driving me nuts.
that's such an interesting part of the process, particularly with things that are active in that way. Like I think music or film, once it's released, it's kind of like, it's such a vulnerable experience because you,
Absolutely.
as the creator, have such a different relationship with it than anyone else that might be engaging with it. And
Yeah.
else that someone treasures, and you might just like, you have this other side story to it.
Yeah. No, for sure. Especially because, I mean, like all of my tracks are very much personal personal experience based,
Yeah.
and whether you may or may not realize it, because I will sometimes mask that a little bit with like, stories and concepts. It's like, oh, it's this other person that's experiencing this thing. Like, no, it's definitely rooted in like a lot of
Yeah.
experiences that I've been going through. So sharing that with people is very, very vulnerable, and it's like, and scary when it comes out, because it's like, I don't know how people are going to react to this. I don't know if they're going to like it. What if they hate it? What if they're like, ew, I hate, like, it's a lot of uh it's a little anxiety inducing sometimes.
I mean, my guess is that that negative response that you're, I mean, we call it, it's sort of like listening. I'm hearing the inner critic a little bit there, the person who's saying, people are going to hate this, no one's going to like it, or it's that voice within that all of us have, that is
Hmm.
negative self-talk that's just trying to grind us down. And it would be much more comfortable if we just stay in our own little bubble zone and never take any, but I'm guessing that none of that happened, that the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Yeah.
It has been positive from the responses I've gotten. I mean, I don't have a huge audience.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm still kind of figuring that out. I find it really hard to self promote, to be honest,
Mm.
because there's just so much content out there. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to get your voice heard sometimes. And I never want to push people to feel like, oh, like you have to listen to this. Like, it's like, listen to it if you want to. I enjoyed making it. I hope you enjoy it too.
Yeah.
But no, it has been a lot of very, very positive responses from people. And I have to say, I was like very pleasantly surprised, um, especially with like the first album release, because that was my first like official release that I did last year. So it was really, really nice hearing responses from people that they really enjoyed it. And like people being like, oh, this one was my favorite song. Oh, I really like this one. I've been listening to like this one on repeat. And I
Hmm.
was like, thank you. Like,
There's,
I'm so glad that people are able to enjoy what I've created.
well, and maybe it has something directly to do with that honesty. Like everything any of us creates, I wonder, it comes from some kind of experience, like lived experience of something real. I think there's something really authentic there that's important, and that's, it's not exactly what happened to us. I don't think what you did was a documentary of this time in your life. It's
No.
an, it's projected and layered in there. So, uh, and I think that's what really interesting art and storytelling does. It takes something that all of us can relate to and feel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but then spins it in such a way that everyone can also learn a little bit more or go on a little journey through it, like a little escape, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Um, what's your favorite kind of storytelling? What do you think makes a good story?
Huh. What makes a good story? I think definitely rooted in personal experience
Mm,
will enriches every story, because, you know, you really get those feelings in there. Like, I don't know. I think I think I agree with you. Like, everything is rooted in personal experience in terms of like art and stuff like that. It's whether or not you can maybe discern that sometimes, maybe not so much, with certain things. But yeah, I think it's important to like experience things outside of art sometimes that will end up feeding into your art in a weird way
Yeah.
and have this weird kind of influence on your art. Um, like I know, I don't know, it's just a very interesting process, and it's very hard to explain without sounding like a whole bunch of like mumbo jumbo.
Well, from I love how you touched upon that, like things that come, it doesn't all have to be consumed or contained within the arts world. Like having those other experiences informs things. Is there something that within your own creative process that you can look to and say, like, what's the most unusual thing or experience that has informed or inspired some of your music?
Um, let's see. Trying to think.
And it's okay if
Um,
you can answer it right now. You can always come back to us.
I think a lot of my stuff is very like feeling based, like how I'm feeling in the moment. Like, for example, somewhere else I created, I was just in a slump. I felt really shitty. I felt awful. Like I just, and I channeled that into the music. Um, that was also a very strange release because it was very, very raw. I had never done anything like that before with the other tracks that I had released because a lot, all of my other tracks up until that point, I'd spent like hours and hours and weeks and maybe months on, to get done. And somewhere else was literally something like I was feeling down. I had these kind of poem lines that I kind of wrote down that had come into my head while I was feeling those emotions.
Yeah.
And then, along with that, sort of, there was like a melody and a chord structure. And I ran over to my keyboard and I did that. And then I recorded the vocals. And 24 hours later, I had submitted it to be released. So that was like a one day and done kind of song, which is very, very odd. And I've never done anything like that before.
Yeah.
So that was very much rooted in that feeling that I was feeling that day.
Hmm.
And I think it's very interesting because a lot of people really, really enjoyed that song and really resonated with that song and like came up to me afterwards or talked to me afterwards and were like, this is like, I love that song. Like I listen to it like all the time when I'm feeling this sort of way or whatever. And I just find that so interesting because yeah, it was such a strange process for me. I don't usually go through it that quickly because I usually give it a day or two and then I'll come back to it and listen to it again. Okay, I don't like this so much, I'll change it, whatever. But this was just literally like 24 hours done, submitted, and then it released maybe 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's part of like, again, I can't imagine like sounds like something you can't really plan. You can't really say tomorrow I'm going to make a song in 4 hours. Like,
Yeah.
those are some of those experiences that just occur. But I wonder how much they're informed by all the work you've already put in. Like when you talk about like learning how to play the piano, how old were you? Like
4.
right? It feels like there's a life experience of creativity that has moved with you through to this point. Maybe that gives you a really strong foundation. So when those moments do arise,
Mm-hmm.
kind of grab them and go. Do you think? Or am I just
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't done that with any of my other singles since. Like I've definitely been able to condense the time for some of them that I've been able to produce them and finish them.
yeah.
But I've never had that exact experience again. I mean, with my inspiration for songs, I find lately it's very much been started with like lyrics that I think of. And weirdly enough, it's usually when I'm eating breakfast. And I have words that just kind of come into my head. I don't know. I kind of talk to myself, like I'll be eating breakfast by myself, in the kitchen, and I'll just be kind of talking to myself or whatever, or humming or like whatever, and it just kind of like formulates in my head.
Yeah.
And as I'm eating like my bagel or whatever, I'll be like, oh, I have to write that down like now before I lose it. And then I'll quickly finish eating my breakfast and go over to like record like the chord progression or something, or like hum the tune or the lyrics or whatever, and then
Yeah.
that's how some of my stuff ends up happening.
I love that so much. So that's also a good note to like, don't call you first thing in the morning. Let you have your break because we don't know what genius might be occurring in the moment.
It's very strange. I don't know why it's such a thing that happens. Maybe it's because, I mean, when I'm not working, I get up late. So usually everyone else in the house has already eaten breakfast and is going about their day or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just by myself in that moment, just like eating and like looking outside or whatever. And I don't know, it's just this weird thing that happens, and I'm able to have this time to think and reflect. And then sometimes that just happens.
Well, it reminds me of the story of what? It's Paul McCartney who wrote Yesterday, yeah? And before he had the lyrics for Yesterday, it started as a song. I think the story goes, it was a breakfast song, and he used scrambled eggs instead of yesterday. So if you put in scrambled lyric, that was the initial placeholder until it came together in his mind. So
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
the breakfast making artists out there.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe it is.
There might be so many. You could form a collective and over coffee. Who knows what might happen.
Right?
So that's like a really interesting window into some of your creative process. Is there anything else that you find really inspires you, or maybe conversely, you were talking too about sometimes getting stuck. Are there things that have sometimes like when you get stuck, how does that work for you?
I mean, with my music, I kind of just do it as I go. So if I am feeling stuck, it's just kind of like it'll happen like later, another day, whatever. Some days it's just not like a music making day,
Yeah.
or like not feeling particularly inspired. Sometimes you just have to watch, like sit down and watch some Netflix and call it a. Um, but I don't know, it's strange because I find that also with like my like creating and stuff like that, it's interesting how sometimes when I'm overloaded with a whole bunch of stuff already and I'm really stressed and feeling overwhelmed, I will go to music sometimes as an escape, and I'll think up some idea while I'm supposed to be doing something else. Kind of, it's weird. It's like I'm procrastinating doing other things by making the music,
Yeah.
and then it ends up being like that's really how this whole thing started as far as like Solyss. Like, it was literally, I think I was supposed to be writing an essay or something, and I ended up like, oh, I've never tried out GarageBand on my laptop. Like, let's see what that's all about. And then like 2 hours later, I had like a full song kind of mapped out in there, and then that kind of started that. So it was really interesting.
So that
how that
one area of stuckness kind of led to the creation of this other outlet that just occurred.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. And then there's other days where it's like, oh, I should like finish this track. Like I still have a lot of work to do it. And I just like don't feel motivated or anything like that. And it's like, sometimes to get out of those kind of slumps, you kind of just have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then, like I've heard kind of the saying, like, motivation is action, right? It's like, sometimes you don't feel motivated until you start those actions, until you do that. Because I do find like once I get into that creative zone, like I will sit there for hours upon hours and not even realize the time.
Yeah.
Just creating stuff. And like sometimes that just comes from like, oh, I don't really remember like what I recorded yesterday or how it sounds. Like I'm just gonna like check on it quickly and like, maybe tweak a few things, see where I need to be. And then like, 4 hours later, I've been sitting there for 4 hours, like working on it. And I was like, oh, I had other things I was supposed to be doing today. But yeah, it's very, very strange how that works. And, sometimes I do work through it and sometimes I don't, depending on the day. I find especially right now with like there being a pandemic and like, life is stressful. Sometimes it's just you know, you do have to take that time off for yourself and give it a rest and then come back to it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just sitting there listening to the same thing over and over again and you're
Yeah.
not getting anywhere with it. So it's hard to say, but I don't know. I'm trying to get better at, you know, starting with that action so that that motivation sort of happens.
Yeah. And I think that's, let me see if I'm pronouncing this right. Galen_C says the biggest hurdle is just to start doing. I think sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, like there's this myth of inspiration out there. Like the muse will suddenly, I don't know what the muse does, but um, like looking for something to happen to us,
Hmm.
creation to happen. But I think so much of the work is often just, you know, getting up, having your bagel,
Yeah.
the notes, and just getting stuck in and seeing what happens. And it might not, you know, because the other myth I think that sometimes trips us up as well is that we confuse work with working with like genius or something like that. Like everything
Mm.
we create has to be gold. Everything we do is only valuable if it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and every once in a while, like you said, something will like come out that way. It'll just be like
Hmm.
happened. But
Yeah.
for a large part, I think for a lot of us, whatever modality you pursue as an artist, it's all the little pieces over time that kind of come together somehow into this thing that you finally love and appreciate.
Yeah. No, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Hi Galen, by the way. Um, yeah, you got it. You got it. No, I agree with that. It's weird because sometimes, you know what, that inspiration does come out of nowhere. Like those breakfast inspiration weird things that happen to me.
Yeah.
Um, but I do find that I struggle with that kind of perfectionism thing too a lot of the time. Um, because I am very much a perfectionist in everything I do, even in like my day job and stuff. Like I want to do things right and I want to do them well.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm working on something and it's not sounding how I want it to, I get very frustrated. And then, you know, sometimes I'll stop working on it for a while and I won't look at it for a while because I'm frustrated with it and I feel like I'm stuck with it. And, you know, sometimes it just like those songs are abandoned and gone forever and nothing ever happens to them. And sometimes that's fine because I don't want to release something that I'm not happy with.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's fine to have those songs that you never release because it's like every artist has that, you know. Like if you look at an album that an artist releases, think about how many unreleased songs that they have archived somewhere that never got released because they weren't happy with it
Yeah.
or whatever. And we'll never know if they were anything, you know, people would have enjoyed. Probably, but it's funny because after I released the first album, I had so many other songs that I had dropped from the album because there was just first of all not enough time for me to finish it all
Yeah.
for the album, but I wanted to keep it to the strongest 8 songs that I liked the most and that I felt happy with the most. So I actually cut down a good amount. And then after the fact, I was like thinking about it and I wanted to release another album called Alternate Reality
Oh,
with those songs that didn't make the cut. But I don't know if it's ever going to happen now because I've just moved on so much from that and I've made so much other stuff since then
mm,
that it's kind of like lost that energy. And I feel like some of them have so much extra work to put into it that would actually make it listenable for me or make me happy with releasing it, that it's almost more worth it to just create something entirely from scratch and
mm,
release that instead. So I feel like you have to pick your battles sometimes with like what you're choosing
yeah.
to put out there, and that's okay because it happens. Like every artist does it, right?
Absolutely. Like it brings to mind like friends of mine who are photographers, and they say the only difference between a good picture and a bad picture is that you release the good picture. Like no one really knows about the bad pictures or the pictures that you don't like because maybe
Yeah.
there are no bad pictures. Maybe there are no bad songs, just songs you are excited about
Hmm.
and versus like what's not really doing it for you right now. But it just
Yeah.
think too, like, is there an equivalent? Like it sounds like when you're describing that process, it's like it reminds me of when I've been talking to other artists, like a visual artist and the sketchbook that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
That those songs right now may not be what you once thought they were, but maybe they're sketches for things that will turn into something else down the road. Is that
Yeah.
what that is? Just your audio sketchbook?
I think so, honestly. There's a lot of stuff saved on my laptop
Yeah.
that, has never been released and whatever. And some of it's from years ago now because it's been a while. Who knows if it will ever turn into anything, but sometimes I do take, little motifs from it, whether it's like some chord structures or a couple lyrics
Mm-hmm.
or even like a instrument sound, like a synthesizer patch or whatever
Yeah.
that I really like from that, and I'll integrate it into a new song. So it kind of it's still useful, and it's even if it's never released, and even if you never use anything from it in that part, it's still part of the creative process. Like it's still something you did to get to where you are,
Yeah.
where you're releasing this new song or working on this new song or whatever. I mean, it's still developing your skill set as an artist, and it's still it's almost like creative journaling, in a way. But in music, and in the same way that, like, no one's ever supposed to read like your journal or whatever. Like no one's ever supposed to hear that stuff that you don't release because, it's just like, yeah.
It's yours. Yeah. It's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, no, no.
exactly.
I love that. And I love, like, one of the reasons why I love doing these live streams is because I get to talk to so many makers and creative folks who do so many different kinds of things. And
Hmm.
there's this common ground between every kind of expressive modality out there. And it's really about, again, storytelling, like lived experience, what is
Hmm.
authentic in the moment, and this duality between what we share with the world and how we share it with the world and what we keep to ourselves at the end of the day. Um,
Hmm.
and even you, like in the moment of like choosing the name Solyss, because that's not your actual name. I think we can say that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing too. Like, who am I as an artist, and how do I want to share with my artist self with the world versus the me that has the bagel in the morning? Like,
Yeah.
what brought you to that name?
Um, so it was kind of a weird combination of things. I had kind of been brainstorming some sort of name because I don't know, I wanted to keep my kind of music steps stuff separate from the rest of the art I create and stuff, just because I don't know, part of it was maybe because I was a little bit scared of judgment from people that I know. Because I mean, at the end of the day, um, it's not it's not really what I went to like school for and stuff, and it's not my career or anything. I'm kind of just doing it on the side, and it's a fun thing for me.
Yeah.
um, and I'm maybe a little bit self-conscious about my vocals sometimes and stuff like that, so I don't know, I created it as a separate thing because I was like, we'll see how it goes, like I'm just gonna do it as like a little side project, whatever. But in terms of the name, so my actual name is Alyssa, so Liss.
It's out there.
So the list part is part of that.
Yeah.
And then soul is like sun. Um, and at the time I was working at a camp, um, and they had this program called the Sunshine Program. So I was a counselor, disabilities and stuff like that, and it was a very, very fulfilling job. So I don't know, at the time, like they would call us like, oh, like Sunshine Alyssa, or like, like Sunshine Council Alyssa, whatever. And I kind of like liked that, also just like energy of like
Mhm.
like sun and like light. um so it kind of went to like Sunshine Alyssa, soulless, but also part of it was like solace, like finding solace in art and music.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a very interesting combinations of like a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And I guess if you think about it too, it's also so list, like so Alyssa, like so me. I don't know. So I
And
don't
you,
know, it's a weird combination of things that kind of just worked out, and I liked how it sounded. So I was like, okay, and I wanted like a one word, like easy to say kind of thing. And yeah, that's
yeah,
kind of how it happened.
I love it. It's such a great handle and artist name. And I really love and admire that interesting place about finding, because maybe a persona, maybe that's the wrong word for it. I'm not sure, but I think every artist needs to find that thing, whatever that is, that boundary that helps define where their artist self reaches out to the audience, and
Hmm.
boundary where they keep things for themselves. Because there has to be something there, whether you have a like
Hmm.
pseudonym or whatever, that's okay. But just even knowing that for yourself, because it is such an intense thing to put yourself out there in this creative way. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
and you're right, it feels a little safer somehow sometimes to be like, well, this isn't really me. I mean, it's me, but it's not me. But it's just gives permission to express yourself. Whereas if it was you, only you, it'd be like it feels different.
Yeah, it's weird because also kind of going into it, I was like, I'm just gonna make it completely like focused on music, like and like
Mhm.
these animation stuff. Like I'm not even gonna show my face, like so no one's gonna know it's me.
Like Daft Punk
And
would have like robot masks to wear and
yeah, yeah, almost as a little bit of like a safeguard.
yeah.
But then I kind of realized after that, um, people like to know who's behind the art and behind the music. And I was also finding that like, I would on my artist account I would like follow friends and stuff like that, and they wouldn't know who it was. So they're like, I don't know who that is. And then, so I started like kind of putting my face in there sometimes. And then people were like, oh, that's you. I didn't know that was you. So then they would like
Yeah.
follow the account and then be able to like listen to the stuff that I was putting out and stuff. So I found that actually kind of helped a little bit. But I was very, very like hesitant at first to do any of that kind of thing because I was very nervous of judgment from people, and that's something I still kind of struggle with. Um, and that's probably why I'm so self-critical of the stuff that I'm releasing, because I am a little bit scared of that judgment. And I think a lot of artists struggle with that too,
Yeah.
because there is so much out there, and it's very, very easy to compare yourself
Oh yeah.
um, to everyone and everything else. So it's like it's trying to find that balance is very, very difficult.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, Farrah saying it helps people connect to be able to see the human behind the art, or the human who is the art or conveys the art. But at the same time, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that it's such a vulnerable thing. It's also such an exciting thing. And it's strange to know that there are so many other people out there who are trying to do similar things in their own way. But that doesn't lessen what you do or what any one artist.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
No, for
really
sure.
interesting conversation to have with yourself. And I love how you it's interesting, like it's almost like you're becoming an accidental musician. Like this is something that's like there's so many different things you know how to do and that you do, but this is obviously something that you love doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No, I love it. Yeah,
if you
it's very, very fulfilling.
if you had a magic wand, like what would your future look like as a creator, do you think?
Ooh.
Like
That's tough.
I have no right to ask it really. Like would music be a part
Um,
day to day if it was something that was supporting you?
yeah, I mean, I think what's really great about what I do is I kind of am able to separate this from like work, like making money work kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it's a lot less pressure, I guess, to just be able to create and not expect, oh, I have to have this many listens or like this many views or whatever to make this amount of money, or to make a living essentially. And I find that that's helpful. So that's something I'm still kind of navigating in my art versus career wise. um Obviously if this blew up into something that was sustainable, I mean that would be amazing. That's kind of the dream for everyone. But
Yeah.
it's okay if it doesn't, because it's still something that I enjoy. And it's something that other people have told me that they've enjoyed too, which is really, really like happy, makes me really happy to hear.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to connect with people in that way, and it's nice to know that people are enjoying what I put out. So yeah, I would say the future holds definitely just more creating and learning while I create, and evolving, I guess, you know. I've definitely found that my musical journey has definitely shifted in terms of like how I've been coming up with things and releasing them and stuff like that. So yeah, I just there's a lot of growth to do still, but I'm excited for it, and I'm excited to keep making stuff and keep releasing stuff because I really enjoy doing that, and I
Oh,
enjoy that people enjoy it too.
oh, I know they do. I do. Um, like that matters. But anyways, you do have
It does matter to me.
you have a new single coming out soonish, do we think? Like when can we
Ah, I'm working on it. Ironically, it's about burnout. So, you know,
Yeah.
I'm working through that kind of burnout as well, while making a song about burnout. So make it make sense. I don't know, but yeah, hopefully soon-ish. I don't know if it will be within this year or in the new year.
Okay.
Um, just because there's a little bit time between when I submit it to streaming platforms and when it's actually able to be like released everywhere.
Okay.
But yeah, I am planning on releasing that hopefully as soon as I can. And yeah, more stuff on the way for sure. I mean, there's still so many unreleased songs that sometimes I'll go back to and listen to, and then maybe sometimes things will come out of it, sometimes they won't. So who knows? And I would love to do another album in the future as well, but that will probably be a little bit longer of a wait because an album takes quite a bit longer than just releasing the one single. So
It's not an instant thing, that's true. And what's the best way for folks to support you or to keep up to date with what's happening? Do you have a favorite platform that you'd like to direct folks to?
um, my Instagram for all the visual stuff that accompanies all the music and stuff. But other than that, follow me on Spotify, all the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
All my stuff is available on like any streaming platform you can imagine. So anywhere there. I haven't been as active on Instagram lately just because I'm kind of trying to get some things done before I say too much about it. But yeah, definitely I'd say Instagram is one of the main ones, and then and all the streaming platforms.
Okay. All right. That's so exciting. Now, since your upcoming single is about burnout, the one last question I want to ask you is if you had anything that you've learned over time about your creativity and self-care, maybe there might be other folks listening who are considering, I want to do what you do, or I'm in the middle of this. What have you learned that you think is important for folks to know about right now?
Um, what have I learned? I think it's important to just create.
Mm.
Um, whether you're sharing that with anyone or releasing it with anyone, I think it's just really important to have that outlet. And I know it's been really helpful for me to work through a lot of emotions and feelings and stuff. So I would think that for a lot of other people too, it's the same kind of thing. So I think it's important to create without expectations and kind of, I don't know, I find that it's like, it is like that creative journaling. And I think a lot of people are kind of scared to create because they don't know. But I mean, just try things. There's so many YouTube tutorials out there, and like, you know, a lot of people are self-taught at this point too. So, you know, there's really nothing stopping you from being able to do the same kind of thing any other artist is doing, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be my kind of advice.
That's amazing. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
It's been such a great chat. And You've got me thinking about a whole bunch of stuff. It's lovely. Um, and folks, if you're joining just now when we're wrapping things up, don't worry, you can watch it once it's been archived. It'll be uploaded to our Instagram page. And of course, we're going to keep an eye out for future singles and updates and alerts coming.
Yeah.
Any last
Fun things coming.
any last shout outs or things you'd like to say before we wrap up here?
I just want to say thank you for having me on this. I was really happy to talk about all this stuff. Um, Shout out to Farah because she's awesome too. Guys should check out her art and stuff and see the collab we did for 1 year, 7 days. Because that was pretty fun and I love how it turned out. So
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, thanks to everyone who joined for the stream. I see a couple people I've recognized, so thank you.
It's just been great having you, and thank you for all yeah, all your art, all your heart, all your thoughts, all of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself, and we can't wait to hear more music and see more art.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wow, that was lovely. Again, another fantastic live stream artist chat with another amazing creator out there in the community. And yeah, please do check out that link. I know we've shared it before, Farrah's Flowers Art. I think we shared that, but you know what? Let me see if I can find it and we'll post it again. Thank you so much to Solyss Music for joining us. We are looking forward to seeing more stuff coming from you. And just what a lovely reminder at the end there to just create, and to create without expectation, without putting all this pressure on ourselves to become something that we're not, or to be something that we're not meant to be in that moment. And sometimes we're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to just let this thing, whatever this kind of creativity is, happen. And that will always take us somewhere, right? So thank you so much, and thank you, Solyss Music, and we look forward to hearing and seeing more amazing stuff from you. But until then, until we can connect and create with one another in person, looking forward to connecting with you and creating with you right here online, either on Instagram or our Facebook page. So check out what we do over on our Facebook page as well, and feel free to watch this again once it's been archived. All right, thanks so much, folks. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.